We asked wealthy people one simple question. What is the biggest misconception people have about wealth? And what they said might completely change how you think about becoming rich.
Brian, I am so excited because today we're revealing the lies that people believe about wealth, what the truth actually is, and what it means for you and for your money.
I'm Brian, he's Bo, and we're two wild and crazy guys who are here to tell you the truth about wealth to help you reach financial independence. With that, let's dive right in.
So, Brian, this was the question that we laid out. It said, what is the biggest misconception that people have about wealth? And honestly, we got tons of great responses, and many of our clients shared not only a misconception, but also the reality behind what's true about the misconception.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. We get to sit in the front row of our millionaire clients and specifically every year ask them what creates wealth. We create content off that, but there's also a section, and you just laid it out, Bo, where we actually ask them an open-ended question of what are the misconceptions, and that's what really has created the content today. The 7 biggest lies that we're fed. Look, I fell prey to this. I grew up in a household, lots of love, lots of hard work, lots of discipline. But the thing that I always heard from my father is you have to be born with it. You have to come from have a silver spoon in your mouth. I'm here to tell you, I love that today's show gets to dispel a lot of those lies.
Well, and you just alluded to the very first lie that we're told about wealth is that you have to be born with it. When we actually looked at some of our client responses, this is what they said. The biggest misconception is that acquiring it has to do with luck, i.e. you're born into a wealthy family, you receive an inheritance, that on sacrifice, hard work, discipline, calculated risk-taking, and responsible decision-making. It's more on the luck stuff and less on what you do. Or how about this one? That it can only be achieved by lucky situations or generational legacy.
Yeah, and that leads to, well, hey, if this is what we're being fed, that's a lie. What's the reality? And this is one of those stat points that I remember when I read, personally for myself, I read Millionaire Next Door. And I was like, whoa, it looks like the actual reality is that a lot of these wealthy people are first generation just like me. And then I can remember when I was working my first public accounting job and started doing tax returns, I remember calling my dad and be like, Dad, a lot of these people are small business owners or they work in this. You wouldn't believe what these people pay in taxes. You wouldn't believe in what. I felt like I had the window or curtain opened. And that's what we're here to share is because there's a lot of stats like of Millionaire Next Door that show that this is first generation behavior.
Yeah, most millionaires are self-made, and this is not a new phenomenon. If we look at a number of studies that were done, we can go all the way back to 1892, and there was a study of millionaires that found that 84% of millionaires, or the millionaire equivalent in 1892, were self-made. Or 1996, when the Millionaire Next Door came out, 80% of millionaires were first generation. In 2019, with the Ramsey survey of millionaires, 79% of millionaires are first generation. And even in our own Money Guy Abound Wealth client survey, we found that 75% of our respondents are also first generation. So it must be true that in order to be wealthy, you don't have to be born with it. You don't have to get an inheritance. You don't have to get lucky. There must be something else to it.
Well, and look, we've shared this stat before, and usually it gets us lots of engagement in the comments section because people just don't like hearing that stat. I actually looked at it as liberating and is actually coming from humble beginnings, you coming from humble beginnings. That stat empowered me, but for some reason, some people get upset about it, and I'm here for all of you who are like, no, the system's stacked against you. This next stat will kind of bring it all back around because there's no way that stat that 80% of millionaires are first generation can be true without this second one. Because if you are somebody who comes from money, this should be cold water and scare the heck out of you because 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by second generation. 90% lose it by third generation.
So if you do happen to be one of those people that is born into an affluent family or does receive some sort of inheritance, don't squander it because that's what a lot of your peers are doing. It's because the second and third generations are not good with the resources is why the first generation has to keep doing it over and over and over again. We sit in the place where we believe whether you come from money or whether you don't come from money, achieving financial independence and building wealth is attainable, but it's not going to happen automatically. You have to be an agent for your own future financial security.
Let's talk about lie number 2. This is one where, look, there's a little sliver of that this has something to it. But a lot of people believe the lie that money buys happiness. And look, we're gonna put some meat on this bone. But a lot of people think if I can just have $1 million or I can have $3 million, a goal number out here of X, that they're going to be happy. There's obviously more to it than that.
Yeah, this is what our clients said. Listen to these responses. The biggest misconception is that a dollar amount, when reached, will solve all of your problems. Or how about this? It doesn't solve all your problems or make you happy, or it won't change your level of happiness. It will just amplify your current personality. The money that you have or that you receive or that you build really just makes you more of who you already are. Yet even though that's true, even though there's not a goal number, and we have clients who've reached financial success that will exclaim that that's not the case, the average American right now, if you were to ask them, believes that in order to be happy, in order to classify yourself as a happy person, you would need to earn over $284,000 a year in annual income.
Well, look, that's disconnected because that's 3 times the median income. That is like puts you in the top 3% of people of what they make. So that's obviously disconnected. So let's kind of pivot and let's talk about what's the truth. And the reality is money is nothing more than just a tool.
You won't find happiness in a specific dollar amount earned or a specific amount invested, but the money can help you do things that will bring you happiness. And what are some of the things that do bring happiness? Well, one, and we talk about this all the time, are experiences over possessions, creating memories and doing things and activities and having things you can take with you are oftentimes way more valuable than the things or the items that you can spend your money on.
So experiences over possessions, obviously time with the family is going to be more important. And I just gave away the second one is because we want you to have those experiences with key people that actually bring happiness and fulfillment to you. Typically, that is your friends, that's your family. Make sure you're making blossoming memories with these awesome people.
So obviously, it's the people you spend time around, but it's also the work that you do. It's the study found that giving back or pouring into the community around you, pouring into other folks around you is a great way for you to experience happiness, or figuring out how you can engage in work that you're passionate about, whether that be the vocation that you do, the job that you do every day, or maybe it's the thing that you volunteer for, the thing that you do on the side, the thing that you do in the margin. If you can find fulfillment in the way that you're spending your time, it's a lot more likely that you're going to be a happy person.
And I want you to be purposeful on how you structure your life. And look, there's a lot of research on happiness that if you're setting yourself up for long things, I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Commutes. If you have a long commute, there's a lot of people that you think in the short term that won't cause a problem, but in the long term it probably can. So pay attention to how you're structuring your life. And then I like this last point, this to kind of close this loop, is can you get outside of yourself? Spiritual fulfillment. Are you thinking bigger than yourself? This kind of gets back to the giving, because I also think that you always hear the adage, it's better to give than to receive. But if you can be a person that's spiritually based, meaning you're thinking about how do I build a life that's bigger than me? I think it really brings in the engaging and passion work, giving back, but also understanding that, look, I need to be a good person. Money is not just about what I can buy or what I can do with this. It's about how do I live the best version of myself.
All right, bro, we're talking about 7 lies about wealth or misconceptions. And lie number 3 is one that I think society has forced upon us. And it's this idea that you can see wealth. Oh, if someone is wealthy, it is ultimately going to be visible. Listen to some of these responses that our clients gave when we asked them about misconceptions. The biggest misconception is that you can see wealth. Many people who look, quote, rich are not wealthy, and most people that I know that actually are wealthy don't look rich. Or what about this one? People know that we're comfortable, but they would have no idea we're multi-millionaires. Or you cannot see wealth because wealth is built from the dollars that you don't spend, not the dollars that you do spend.
And that's why I love that we get to share the truth. Real wealth whispers.
That's
we
right.
often talk about stealth wealth. It's one of those things is that being rich is so much better than just looking rich.
Yeah, oftentimes I try to tell my kids this whenever they see someone who has a really fancy car or a really nice house. Like, oh, daddy, so-and-so must be rich. I'm like, baby, they may or may not be. But oftentimes when you see those things, you are not seeing a representation of how much money someone has. You are seeing a representation of how much money someone has spent. And how much someone has spent is not reflective of what they have. And I think society and the Instagram real world that we live in is telling us a very, very different thing.
Look, I've been around the block for a while, and I can remember back in the mid-'90s when Millionaire Next Door came on the scene, one of the headlines that came out of that book that seemed like it was on the nightly news and made their rounds with all the entire news cycle was that most millionaires drive Ford F-150s.
F-150, that's right.
You know, and that's because that was the worker truck of the small business owner. Well, we'll take it even a step further. The study from Experian said that 61% of households making more than $250,000 a year don't drive luxury brands. Instead, they drive less showy cars like Hondas, Toyotas, and Fords. So this is something that I think is really valuable, is that those who have it don't feel like they have to flex with the whip.
And so why do people do that? What's the reason why people try to show their wealth? Well, obviously, it's so that they give off the perception of being wealthy. So if you truly want to be a financial mutant, you need to recognize that, man, I don't need to try to keep up with the Joneses because there's a really good chance that the Joneses are broke. So I want to be careful spending money on things that I don't care about to impress people whose opinions don't matter. If you can figure out what it is that you enjoy, what it is that you value, what it is that you want to spend your dollars on, you're going to find it's likely not going to be the things that are showy and impressive to other people, but it's going to be the things that actually matter to you.
Well, and I still want people to spend time on happiness by bedazzling your basic life. Don't mishear us. We're not saying don't do vacations, don't drive a reliable transportation. We just want it all to be purposeful. I want you to kind of, when I say bedazzle your basic life, I still want you to go on trips, make memories, do all those things that we talked about that are kind of indicators that work towards happiness, like time with family, being purposeful with your time and what you're here for. But it's just that you understand the value of your money, and so you don't have regrets. So when you're in your 50s and 60s, you still look back and go, yeah, I did it right in my 20s. Yeah, I did it right in my 30s. Yeah, I did it right in my 40s. And I knew how to take and turn a little bit into a lot so I could have my great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
All right, so wealth is not something that often should be seen. Another thing is we shouldn't let our wealth affect our mindset or the way that we think, because lie number 4 is that having wealth or being wealthy makes you superior to others. Listen to what our client said. The biggest misconception is that there's a moral component associated with wealth, that wealthy people are somehow more trustworthy and those without money have a moral deficit and can't be trusted. Or how about this one? Having a lot of money does not mean that you're a better person than regular folks. The public tends to glorify the wealthy as heroes to be followed, when in truth, they are just regular human beings with the same flaws as all the rest of us.
You know, I go on these walking meetings with friends and other entrepreneurs and others because I love going on walks. And a mutual friend of ours, another business owner, we were on a walk not too long ago, and we had a conversation, and we were like, people over $100 million, how many of them can we say are great people? And I'll be honest, there were some people we came up with, but there's a lot more that you see broken households. You see just not the greatest versions of what you expect out of humankind. And I think there's something to that. Look, we think that money is obviously a very important tool, but it makes the key point that your wealth is not your worth.
That's right.
And it's something that I think everybody needs to be mindful of, that this is just a tool.
Wealth or being wealthy does not define you or the kind of person you are. What it most likely is wealth is a reflection of wise and consistent choices made over a lifetime. We do an annual survey where we ask our clients to say, hey, how did you achieve your wealth? What was the thing that brought you to it? What was the thing that allowed you to be wealthy? And 76%, 3 out of 4 of our clients said that they were able to reach their very first $1 million, not by being better than someone else at something, not by being a virtuoso, not by climbing the corporate ladder and being a top C-suite executive, but simply by saving and investing and exhibiting consistent saving behavior, living on less than they make, building up wealth. So being wealthy is not a function of you are a better person, a more moral person, a more smart person. It's really a reflection of, hey, I was willing to make consistent decisions to arrive at the financial circumstance I'm at right now.
Well, I want to create this as something that's an encouraging stat as well. Is that I think a lot of us, we look at ourselves and go, are we that special? You know, and when I see a stat like this, is that 76.4% were just savers and investors. They took small decisions, small good decisions, and just did it consistently over and over again. So you don't have to be the virtuoso. You don't have to be the senior executive. You don't have to be this dreamer / entrepreneur. You can do this with just good common sense and good decisions.
And then another thing we want to remind you of, and I think Henry Ford is the one that popularized this, that money doesn't change who you are. It merely unmasks you. If a man is naturally selfish or arrogant or greedy, all that happens when they have money is the money brings that out. It amplifies who you are. So whether you are wealthy as you're sitting here today or whether you're not wealthy, it's worth self-reflecting. Okay, what kind of person do I want to be? And if I'm able to have more wealth, if I'm able to build up the financial coffers, will I be better able to lean in to being the kind of person that I want to be?
Well, I think it's an amplifier. You know, this is one of those things I talk about in Millionaire Mission, is that I think that all money does is really amplifies who you are. It's once again why, going back to that list of what creates happiness and fulfillment, what are you a generous heart? Because that's going to get you outside of where's your spirituality, where's those type of things, the whys of who we are as people is going to keep you from getting into the greedy stuff and thinking you're better than somebody else. There's a better way to do money.
All right, Brian, we're talking about lies or misconceptions about wealth. Now, this next one is really interesting because this is a lie about what's required. And there's this common idea out there that if you want to be wealthy, not only would you have needed to inherit it, or not only would you need to have wealthy parents, but if that was not the case, the only way for you to get there is that you must have a high salary. You need a very large shovel in order to build wealth. But listen to what our client said. The biggest misconception is that you have to have a high salary to build wealth. This particular client made $60,000 as a starting salary in their 20s, yet they were still able to build hundreds of thousands of dollars in liquid net worth at that salary through smart and wise investing. Another client said, sure, income helps, but most importantly, it's based on the behavior of starting early and being consistent over a long period of time. Or most people can outspend any amount of income if they don't have discipline to save and invest. And Brian, we've seen this. We have seen folks who make millions and millions of dollars a year in annual income, and yet they are still broke because they've not figured out the key to actually building wealth.
Yeah, the money is only a part of the recipe. And what do I mean by that is that, guys, anybody who's hung out with us for any amount of time, you know, we talk about it often, is that there are 3 ingredients to wealth creation. And the most important, or the foundational point, is the first point, the first ingredient, which is discipline. Can you actually live on less than you make? Because if you can live on less than you make, it creates margin in what's coming through your household cash flow. And that margin creates that second ingredient that we just talked about, which is the money. And once you can create that margin of money, if you give it the third and most valuable of the 3 ingredients, time, now we're cooking and have the true recipe for wealth creation.
Yeah, building wealth is not about how much money you make. It's what you actually do with that money. And while it likely is easier with a big shovel,
For sure.
and maybe there's not as much friction, it can still be done even if you don't have a big shovel. Or maybe you're someone who's saying, oh, well, I'm gonna wait till my income gets higher, then I'm gonna start saving, then I'm gonna start making better financial decisions. You would be amazed if you can just take a little bit today, if you could just make some wise decisions with where you are today and begin making those sound financial decisions, those will compound through time. And maybe one of the best examples of this is actually from the Ramsey Millionaire study. The study found that the third most common profession amongst millionaires was not lawyers or attorneys or professional athletes. The third most common profession among the millionaires that they interviewed were actually teachers, educators.
Well, and this makes sense. If you think about it, look, at first you're like, that's a contrarian stat point. Why would teachers be millionaires? Because we just, when we think of teachers, they're definitely not super highly paid. The median salary here in the United States, K through 12 teachers, is $63,000. How can these show up in the top 5 of category of professions for millionaires? Well, think about forced scarcity. Number one, 2 big things: forced scarcity and automatic contributions from a pretty young age. That's the second point, is starting as early as possible. So it's back to having the consistency of doing it early and doing it often. We didn't put this slide in there, but we talk about it often. If you compare the journey, if you go to moneyguy.com/resources and our wealth multiplier, the journey for a 20-year-old who starts saving and investing is 3 times easier on what they have to actually put into work than a 30-year-old. For a 20-year-old compared to a 40-year-old, it's 10 times easier. And so, yes, you're broke as a joke when you come out of school, but a little goes a long way. And I think teachers, because of the forced behavior of them having to fund a portion of this pension, to fund a portion of their savings, it creates the perfect ingredients for long-term success.
Yeah, when it comes to building wealth, the key is consistency and time, not necessarily a high salary. High salary is not required. Now, line number 6 is a little bit interesting, and I think this one is going to sound somewhat contrary, but the lie is that when it comes to wealth, when it comes to quote-unquote being wealthy, it's all about money. It's all about how many zeros, how many commas you have, but that's not the truth. That's a lie. Listen to what our client said. They said, the biggest misconception is that wealth is about money. It's also about time. Money gives you the freedom to do the things you want when you want. Those 2 things combined is what is actually wealth. Or how about this one? Health is truly the greatest wealth. If I'm healthy, then I am wealthy.
I mean, this is a powerful point. This is one of those things, as I've gotten older, we often talk about the element of time. I always say, for my 20-somethings, you are literally a billionaire of time. You make sure you act accordingly. Well, also, as I am in my 50s, I now recognize how scarce my component of time is. So I think that leads to the truth. Wealth is the freedom to focus on what matters. And it's amazing how much of this is, if you can make smart decisions when you're early, you can hopefully get options and flexibility and do things when you want on your terms in the future.
Yeah, it's about a few things. One of the things that was alluded to was health. That you just mentioned flexibility. It's the ability to do what you want, when you want, how you want, on your terms. When you no longer have to trade your time to earn money, you can begin trading your money to buy back your time. I think it was Chris Rock who said, wealth is not about having a lot of money. It's about having a lot of options. It's about being able to do the things that you want to do on your terms. If all you're doing is trying to get to $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, and you don't understand what freedom that actually brings to you, I think you're going to find that it's a pretty empty goal.
Well, and how many people, we'll get a front row seat to creating success, but also seeing what successful people do. One of the things that breaks my heart is when you see somebody who's got this goal of, I'm going to live my best life in my 50s and 60s, because that's the retirement date that I've set, and I'm going to do all this deferred gratification until that point. And then what happens when they get sick? And that makes the point of, that's why I want you to live your best life in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, so you don't have regrets, is because there is something to the fact that if you don't have health, what have you really got? And there's a stat out there that says 49% of retirees who are happier in retirement plan and take care of their health. Because what I don't want you to do is to just take your health for granted. And you get to have a front row active role in how well you want to be. I had a pastor who I became really close friends with. We actually traded texts last week. It's always because he lives out of a different state now. We're separated. But he's the one, because he's a few years older than me, that he said, that you get a crossroads at your 40s, that you either choose how healthy your body is, or you're going to use your body as an instrument and exercise it and keep it healthy. Guys, there is something to that, because I have focused on my 40s being healthy, and now I'm in my 50s, and I'm definitely focused on it, because if we can keep ourselves healthy, you get more activity, you get more experiences, you can be a big integral part of your success in this element.
So wealth is about giving you flexibility, about options. You want to make sure that you stay healthy so that you can enjoy your wealth. But wealth is also about the ability to create abundance in the lives of those that you care about. And this might be in terms of giving. Maybe I give money. Maybe you volunteer your time. And while I think we all have kind of arrived at the conclusion, okay, yeah, giving is good, and we've heard that it's better to give than to receive, but the Cleveland Clinic actually found that there are specific benefits associated with giving, with being generous, such as lower blood pressure, lower levels of depression, lower overall stress levels. So if you can use your wealth and build wealth to be able to affect, impact, and support those around you in a healthy way, there are benefits that you may receive that are not monetary, but are still unbelievably valuable.
Yeah, and this goes outside of even these stats. A lot of you do any research on sleep, anybody who has trouble going to sleep, you'll find out a common exercise that you can do at bedtime to help you sleep better is exercises of gratitude, thinking about what you actually have appreciated about the day or what's going on in your life right now that's good. Guys, there is a direct correlation to this. Health is wealth. Don't sleep on this. A lot of us achievers, we're driven so hard that we think that we can do anything and everything, but you will reach a level where you stress out your nervous system if you're not taking time to get outside of just the money. There's something to focusing on the wealth. And Bo, it all gets back to time and experiences with people we love, the memory making, all these things. Do you see how this stuff starts to interconnect in a lot of ways that I think a lot of content on personal finance misses? That's what we're here for, is to try to connect those dots so you can live your best life.
Yeah, it's not about having a huge account balance. It's about using the resources to live the life that you ultimately want to live. So obviously we've painted it in this light that being wealthy, quote unquote, is a good thing and can be a positive thing. But then there's lie number 7. And I think this is probably maybe the most damaging and most harmful of all the lies, is that there has been a lie that has permeated society that wealth is unattainable. Yep. It's not something that can be achieved by the everyday person. This is what our client said. The biggest misconception is that it's unattainable for the masses. The truth is, anyone can amass more wealth than they currently have today. Another misconception is that there are factors outside of our control, inflation, housing market, job market, et cetera, that are preventing us from being able to achieve wealth at all, or wealth is out of their reach. Just saving a portion of income over a long period of time works. Get rich slowly.
Yeah, this is the biggest takeaway, and I hope that we are the poster children for this. We both come from humble beginnings. And that's one of the things that a lot of this content for the Money Guy Show was built on the back of when I was 22 years old and started my wealth building journey. I had the discipline figured out, but I just didn't know what to do with the money. But I'm here to tell you guys, if you will show up and listen to our content, we truly do believe the truth is anyone can build wealth.
That's right.
It's just one of those things. I think that, yes, the system right now, yeah, I get it. Education's kind of distorted right now with all the student loans out there. Yes, cost of housing's gone up, but man, oh man, the innovation that's around us that has made it easier to invest, to put your army of dollar bills to work, that part, the innovation and how fast the economy is growing, you can be a part of that. You don't have to try to beat the market. You just have to be with the market. And I think you're going to see that your money can actually work harder than you can with your back, your brain, and even your hands. But even though you can build, and we think anybody can build money, you need to know what to do with that money or how to make that money an expression of living your best life. And Bo, that's what we are here to try to help people understand, not only the analytics, but the why of how you maximize this tool of money.
Yeah, the formula is actually pretty simple when you think about it. It's live below your means, invest consistently, avoid high interest debt, and then let time and compounding do all of the heavy lifting. And while that's an incredibly simple formula, it's not always that easy. But the earlier you figure it out and the more discipline you can exercise, the easier it can become. It will take sacrifices. You will have to defer some of the day for tomorrow. But if you can do that, you can build wealth. You can live the life that you want to live on your terms. And the only person stopping you from that is you.
I think a lot of people, because I love these shows where we're dispelling lies that are so common out there. And a lot of you who are watching this content, I think what you get from us, if you've actually created success in your life, is you're nodding your head and you're affirming. You're like, man, this is pathetic almost how these guys are telling me things I've experienced in my own journey. Because once again, we are the mouthpiece of all of our millionaire clients who've responded to our annual surveys. And you're like, how do these guys know so much? Is because we've lived this life. We've helped hundreds, if probably thousands of people at this point on our client list, and then millions of you out there in the audience. So we know what goes into creating wealth. And look, you can try to keep your plan and your life as simple as possible. But the reality is that when you create success, and it will show up when you create success, complexity comes around the corner. And you can try to keep things as simple as you want. And when I invite you, when that complexity shows up, we've got the answers for you on that too. We work with clients all across the country. We're going to leave the porch light on for you. We'd love to help you navigate, because a lot of you are going to cross into the threshold of retirement or financial independence. You just don't know what you don't know, because you're going through this one time. As we said, 80% of millionaires are first generation. So there's a lot of newness to a lot of you. You don't know how to maximize this tool of money that gets more and more complicated as you create success. Let us be the guide map for you so that you can live your best life and own that much more time in this important life that you have. That's, like I said, you're not a billionaire of time anymore, but now you have the resources to buy more of that scarce resource of time. And I'm your host, Brian, joined by Mr. Bo, Money Guy Team. Out.